Hello everyone, and welcome back to another figure review. Today, we're taking a look at what started out as a harmless gift from a dear friend that inevitably led me down the path of what will be my 10th year as a collector. The OG himself, the S.H.Figuarts Dragon Ball Z Broly, the legendary Super Saiyan. So before we get started with diving into the review, I'm going to put out a full disclaimer on this one. I'm more than likely going to be unapologetically biased as hell, because Z Broly here is probably my favorite character in all of Dragon Ball, next to Vegito. That means if you're looking for a critical review, you're probably not going to get one here. But I'll try my best to be critical of the figure when it calls for it, but keep in mind, there is a reason why this guy is so sought after in the S.H.Figuarts Dragon Ball community. Starting with the packaging, we have Broly in the old school box design from years ago that uses a dot matrix for the picture we see of Broly, with the colors of the box being done in gold and red to match the figure. It's not as elaborate as what we're used to seeing nowadays, but it's a nice blast from the past. The right side of the box continues that dot matrix image of Broly, with the back side giving us an in-depth look of what to expect with Broly when you pose him around or recreate the scene from the movie where Broly tanks Goku's Kamehameha. Speaking of, that scene still gives me goosebumps to this day. We also get a look at the effect pieces for Broly, including a stand to support those pieces. The left side of the box gives us another image of Broly just standing there.
Menacingly.
Here's a quick look at the top of the box, letting us know that he is the legendary Super Saiyan. And here's a look at the bottom to round out the packaging. For the paint detail on Broly, if Mecha Frieza has my title for the most paint of any S.H.Figuarts, Broly here surely has the most shading of any S.H.Figuarts. The shading Tamashii Nations used on Broly makes the figure pop and gives this behemoth that much more detail in his musculature and attire. The hair is molded in yellow with neon green highlights to remind you that this is no ordinary Super Saiyan. The faces capture that iconic look of the transformation with the pupils being non-existent, and they are done perfectly in my opinion. But I do kind of wish we had gotten the smirking face we see on the back of the box. It's just a little more twisted and sinister than what we get in hand. Other than that, they knocked the faces out of the park. As far as the execution on Broly's outfit goes, it's another home run. The necklace, bracers, belt, and boots are done in a brilliant gold, and the gems are absolutely gorgeous, all of which are done in a pearlescent blue. I will note that the belt is only present on the front piece of the sash that is hinged. If you look underneath the folds of the waist wrap, there is no belt to speak of. And that was probably a design choice taken to prevent the articulation of the sash from being limited, and I'm okay with it. The pants are done in white with blue shading to make those folds in the clothing stand out. In fact, that's the whole takeaway from Broly here. There isn't a single part of the figure that is missing something. Well, maybe on my left bracer, which honestly could have been from him moving around in the packaging from all these years. But besides that, there's shading on all sides of the figure, and not just the front like we're used to seeing on something like the general release of Goku Black or the Super Saiyan Blue Goku. Now keep in mind there are two other versions of this guy with different color schemes, and that's something I've always noticed about Movie 8. The art direction felt all over the place, because in one scene Broly would have the greenest hair ever, and in the next it'd be a lighter yellow. I've seen a few people state that this version of Broly is more akin to his appearance in Broly Second Coming, but I'd have to say it was either inspired by the cover for Movie 8 or the final clash between Goku and Broly at the end of the movie. Overall, this guy is going to stand out on the shelf, but is that all he's good for? Let's take a look at the articulation and determine if Broly here is more than just a fancy centerpiece. Alright, let's get into the articulation here for Broly. Being released back in 2014, he is going to be rocking some of that 1.0 architecture with inklings of what would eventually be standardized by the 2.0 figure just a year later, starting with the Warrior Awakening Goku. Some of those items are going to be here in the knees, where the joints are more fluid when you articulate the knees. The upper torso is going to be segmented to where you can actually lean him forward and back and not have it all be at the waist. And then lastly, the arms. Typically on your 1.0 Gokus or even Vegitos, Gohan, what have you, or even just any of the 1.0 figures, there's a bit of a lip that hangs over the bicep. Here, it's completely eliminated, or at least it's more flush, it's more fluid. It looks like it actually should. And that's something you will eventually see on the shirtless Goku here. See how the shoulder flows into the bicep or the arm? It just looks more natural and not goofy looking. So, let's take a closer look at Broly and see what he's all about. Alright. Starting with the head and working our way down, Broly is going to be rocking a first and probably the only time that I can think of a double ball hinge being used on a figure for the head. And what I mean by that is he would have the typical range of a ball hinge, but then some, because you can actually move that ball hinge, because it has two pieces to it, forward and allow Broly to look down that far. If you look inside, behind the neck, because for whatever reason it's visible, you can see that there's one ball hinge and then there's two. That is going to allow Broly to move that head forward and back and look more natural depending on what pose you get him in. Now, it's going to look god-awful in certain poses like you just saw a minute ago like that, but you're going to be able to get him to look down at Goku or whoever just by moving the head forward. So, the ball peg that this pegs onto is actually so independent by itself, you can get Broly to sit here and do this number all day and not worry about a ball hinge potentially stressing because you're leaning the head this way or leaning it that way or what have you. This is very solid, and I think it's there because there is no neck joint, as you can see. So, more likely, it's there to compensate. Broly is probably not compensating, but let's be real. Okay, so, that said, if you want to get Broly to move his head a full 360, you do have to kind of move that peg forward just a little bit. And even then, when you do that, be cautious because that joint will want to kind of move on you, as it has on me. So you'll have to kind of wrangle it around before you can get Broly to rest his head back in a neutral position. Which even then, it's still, there we go. There we are. Okay, so now let's move on to the arms. Broly is going to be rocking some solid hinges for the arms. He can T-pose greater than 180 degrees. He's going to be able to bring those arms in because of the way his arms are sculpted, or at least here in the shoulders, fairly close. You can get them to turn. I mean, he can get the fist to touch if you want to. It's a lot better than Goku. And the Goku that I just showed a minute ago is shirtless. So this is definitely a step forward, whereas that Goku was a step back when it comes to articulation for the chest region. I mean, they fixed it with the 3.0 Goku, but that is for another review. That said, whenever you have those arms forward like that, I should show this real quick. If you have these arms forward, Broly can stand on his own fairly decently, but these are hefty pieces of plastic, and Broly will want to become very top-heavy if the arms are out above him at a 90-degree angle. So just keep that in mind. They do rotate a full 360 because they are on a ball and socket system. You do have a bicep swivel, but keep in mind, because of the way the pecs are sculpted on Broly, getting him to articulate that bicep swivel is going to happen whenever you have the arm out, just ever so slightly. And there you can see how heavy the arm is. It's not that it's loose, it's just, this is, again, a hefty piece of plastic. If you tuck the arm in kind of just like that, it takes a lot of that slack away, and he's able to hold the arm up fairly well. We get double jointed elbows, which look seamless as well. And we have a dumbbell style wrist peg for the hands. This will mean that Broly can move his hands in whatever direction you want. Do keep in mind though, as you rotate the hand or pop it on and off, you do take the chance of potentially scraping that paint. So be very careful. For the chest, Broly is going to be able to lean forward about like that. Let me get the gargantuan arm out of the way. And he's going to be able to lean back about like that. He does have a torso extension, but moving him forward will kind of collapse it. With the waist, Broly can lean forward about that far, and he can lean back that far. You do get some side-to-side movement. It's very limited. Rotating Broly is also very limited. At the waist, you can rotate Broly around a full 360 probably if you wanted to. I'm just not going to, just because the figure has a lot of detail and a lot of paint on him. And any unnecessary strain, obviously kind of like with the Goku Black review that we did, any unnecessary or overextension of the joint is going to cause paint transfer or rubbing, so just keep that in mind. That said, this is a floating piece. For the belt here, this will go up about that far. And it'll allow Broly to bring the legs in about like so. You can, with the legs forward, have this come up a little bit and get Broly to kick out about that far. And also do the splits about like that. It's not very impressive just because of how you're having to fight this here. This is all hard plastic, as you can hear, even back here. There is no give on this, so be very careful. This is 2014 standards, by the way, where everything is hard plastic and not soft. We do have a bit of a drop down, which is nice. Upper thigh swivel. Put those away. Like I said, being hard plastic, that's not going to happen. But with the drop down, a little bit more. For the knees. Very solid. And you can see from the side. Okay. And lastly, for the ankles, we do have a little bit of an ankle rocker going in. Going out, it's greater. I don't know why it's that way, but it is what it is. Going down is very solid, but going up, I think, is more just to stabilize him when he's leaning forward just a tad. So, overall, Broly is, for a gigantic figure like he is going to be able to articulate fairly decently, even by 2014 standards, compared to some of the stuff that we get today. I think Broly's a knockout. He is going to be able to pose the way you want him to, for the most part. Just be mindful of the harder plastics, not having as much give as, say, the newer Broly, where it's softer plastic for the wrap around his waist. But for a figure this big, that's what's impressive to me. For being as big as he is, he's able to do some of the stuff that some of your 2.0 figures can't even do. And that's saying a lot. Let's move on. For the accessories, Broly here is going to be rocking 2 additional faces for a total of 3, 2 extra sets of hands for a total of 3, and 3 energy effect pieces. Seems like 3 is the magic number for Broly. There's 2 other versions of him for a total of 3, and there's 3 movies. Feel like I'm missing something here. Anywho, for the faces we have, the default stern face, the smirking face, and a shouting face. For the hands we have, the 2 fists that come attached, 2 clenched hands, and the 2 open palm hands for energy attacks. And for the effect pieces, we get 3 of them things, and they are done in a translucent green with a little bit of shading to make them pop. We also get a support stand for Broly and those effect pieces. Speaking of standing, Broly here is actually able to stand up on his own fairly well, but if you're afraid that the big guy is going to take a nosedive, I would highly recommend using the support stand that he gets. Now, for what I think the figure is missing, that's kind of an easy one. 2 extra faces, one where he's grinning ear to ear like we get with the full power Broly from Super, which he doesn't do that in the movie, but whatever, and a teeth gritting face to recreate the scene where Broly first transforms into the legendary Super Saiyan. And I also think he could have benefited from a right hand with a singular finger for pointing at Goku to indicate that he will be the first of his victims. Other than that, that's all I can really think of. Broly here comes packaged with more effect pieces than most of your modern Dragon Ball figures, and sure, Tamashii is starting to include more now, but back then this was the norm. Hell, even your 1.0 Vegito and Ultimate Gohan, which released shortly after Broly came out, had effect pieces. And it's almost like Tamashii was taking a step back there for a while, until recently. Thankfully. For the comparisons, we have Broly next to the legendary Super Saiyan Son Goku, Piccolo, the proud Namekian, aka the little green bug that's come to get squashed, the Super Saiyan 2 Son Gohan event exclusive, the Super Saiyan Prince that failed to make Broly kneel before him, Vegeta, awakened Super Saiyan blood, and Super Saiyan Trunks, the princess from the future. So for my closing thoughts on Broly here, he's almost perfect. As I mentioned in the accessories department, if he had those extra faceplates or that hand, I think this would have been an easy 11 out of 10 for me. As he stands, he's a biased 10 out of 10 for me. Now, there's quite a bit of nostalgia for me when it comes to Broly, and he's been my favorite character since I first saw the movie back in 2003. Broly's also the reason why Pantera is my favorite band, and why I know of artists such as Slow Roosevelt and Haji's Kitchen. Speaking of, I'm sure you can hear Lost playing in the background, and you should absolutely go show Haji's Kitchen some love. So for as much flack Funimation gets for changing the score on us, they at least introduced our generation to some quality music. But back to the figure. I once mentioned in my Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta review that Vegeta, the OG Goku Black, and this Broly are all Grail figures, and I still strongly stand by that notion, more so with Broly here. The joints are super solid, and the quality of the paint apps and shading are top notch, and mind you, this is all in a 10-year-old figure. I can say with full confidence that this figure holds up even by today's standards. I do want to note that Demon Aquafit and Beast Deities are making their own 3.0 Broly figures since Tamashii Nations has not gotten around to reissuing or giving us an updated mold for Broly here outside of Super Broly. Beast Deities will be releasing 3 different versions of Broly: your traditional Broly, a battle damaged Broly similar to his appearance in Second Coming, and a Super Saiyan 3 version if you're familiar with Raging Blast. I've pre-ordered all 3 of them, so we'll have to do a review of them once they release at the beginning of next year. But if you're a purist, meaning you must only have figures with Tamashii Nations and Bandai stamped on it, you're going to be paying a hefty premium. The 2014 Broly is currently fetching upwards of $350 USD, and that's just the entry-level one. The ones currently being offered by Beast Deities are going for around $80 to $90 USD depending on what version you get on 5K Toys, but unfortunately the pre-orders have since closed, and now you're looking at $130 on AliExpress. So if you don't mind third-party items, there's a good chance you'll probably be pleasantly surprised by those offerings. Outside of that, that's it for right now. But there is hope. Whenever these third-party companies make these type of figures, every once in a while, Tamashii will do something to remind those folks that they're the kings of their craft. Looking at you, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku. This could potentially mean, and I mean potentially with all the air quotes, that a reissue of this Broly is possible, despite being a one-and-done web exclusive like the Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta was supposed to be, and look what we got this year. Or we could even get a brand new sculpt altogether. Tamashii doesn't like it when there's money to be made and they're not capitalizing on it, especially on one of the franchise's most beloved characters. Hell, I would be okay with the suppressed Z Broly figure. That has been on my wish list forever now, and I would like to see that version of Broly get a little more love. He just recently got some in Xenoverse 2, so maybe there's a chance. But as it stands for this Broly, he's a certified banger, and if you have to have him and you love the character, he is worth every penny. And that brings us to the end of the review. I want to thank you, the viewer, for making it to the end. If you haven't already, kindly hit the like button and subscribe as it helps me out and keeps the channel growing. Plus, I've got other reviews up and more to come. Also again, a big thank you to my friend. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have bought into this line so heavily. And I mean that genuinely. Dragon Ball means a lot to me, and collecting this line has been a rewarding passion for me. And if someone were to ask me, what is the last figure you'd ever sell, it would be this. And even then, they'd have to come and take it, brother. But as always, I appreciate y'all stopping by. This has been Talite Reviews, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.